My guest in this episode of Suds Search is Paula Keller French, Director of Sales and Marketing at Search Influence, a digital marketing agency located in New Orleans. Paula started at Search Influence in 2009 on the then 9-person team. Today, the team at Search Influence has grown considerably, expanding on their SEO and PPC services to offer clients ROI-focused funnel-to-funnel marketing strategies with a particular focus on higher ed institutions as well as the medical and tourism industries. Paula is a popular conference speaker, blogger, and trainer. A short list of the conferences you might have heard her speak at includes Mozcon Local, Local U, Pubcon, State of Search, and Engage. She's also led training sessions at her alma mater, LSU. Periodically, Apple releases updates to their operating system. There are many reasons for these updates, and generally speaking, the updates are totally benign. It's not a big deal for digital marketers or iPhone users who make up around 47% of the cell phone users in the US. Apple's next update, called iOS 14, has a little bit more going on. For the first time, iPhone users will select to either opt in or opt out of sharing their data with the social media behemoth. Paula and the team at Search Influence are working to prepare their clients for the update. We're going to spend a lot of our conversation talking about iOS 14 and diving into a blog post written on the Search Influence site about 4 steps to prepare for Apple iOS 14's impact on your Facebook ads. Grab something cold to drink and join me for a conversation with Paula Keller French. We'll have a wide-ranging conversation about how advertisers adapt to new privacy policies. I'll ask a few questions about a post she wrote highlighting medical industry trends, and she'll talk a little bit about why it's important to talk with your hands. Paula Keller French, welcome to Suds Search. How you doing?
Thanks, Mark. I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing great. It's nice to talk to you on a Wednesday afternoon here. So I wanted to set the table for our audience. You were really generous to offer a topic that might be good for us to talk about, and I'm actually really interested in this topic. So this was good timing. Basically to set the table, periodically Apple will have updates to their iOS. And generally speaking, these are sort of just benign to marketers and to iPhone users as well. There's an upcoming, we're filming this. The time of this is actually important. We're filming this at the end of March 2021. And there's an update that's coming up. We don't know exactly when, but we know it's coming up. And this seems to have big ramifications, or potentially could have big ramifications for marketers. With iOS 14 coming, why are digital marketers concerned about this?
Yeah, so what Apple is going to force app developers to do is to request users a permission or allow them to deny permission to track their activity across other websites and apps. And so the reason why digital marketers are so concerned, or at least they should be if they're not aware of this yet, is that the primary change is going to be a less personalized advertising experience for that end user, which ultimately means that the ads that we're running for our brands could potentially be less effective.
Yeah, so I think it is important just again to mention the time that we're filming this, because one of the big things is we don't know when this is going to happen. They've said early 2021. I talked to our director of paid media, Mark Irvin, about this earlier today, and he said this is making everyone go crazy, that they don't know when this is happening, and that essentially what he's trying to think about a lot is, what's the worst case scenario? What could be the worst thing that happens, i.e. all the data is gone? I guess one of the things that we started to go through is there a chance that this rolls out and it's not as big of a deal as we're all thinking? Are we just trying to prepare for the worst because that's our job, but in the end, this might not be as big of a deal as we think?
As a extreme optimist, that is what I am hoping for, because people have to opt out of tracking. They have to click, allow or, deny the app to track me in order for this to actually have the impact that we think it's going to have. And now long term, we expect there to be additional changes that are similar to this. And maybe the warnings get to be a little more, a little more to the point where they're actually deterring people to click that. But I mean, as a digital marketer, of course, I'm going to allow these apps to
Right.
continue to track me. And, some unknowing consumers are going to allow the app to track. And then you have people who are going to be super excited to be able to click that, allow or disallow app to track me button. So, yes, there's definitely a chance that this couldn't be as big of a deal as everybody's saying. But that said, Facebook has already made some significant changes to their platform and their best practices in order to prepare for this. And I actually think that those are the changes that people need to be most aware of today, because there are real actions that people have to take in order to make sure that their ads and their campaigns are going to comply and that they have the best chance of success once all these changes are truly enforced.
Well, interesting. I mean, I think there's something I don't totally know. So, and it might sound like a minor point, but I think it's really, really important. Is there any indication right now how somebody would either opt in or opt out of sharing their data on Facebook? Is it something like we expect there's going to be something that comes up on the screen and it's going to sound scary to somebody who just doesn't really know, and so they'll almost for sure say, "Don't share my data"? How will people be either opting in or opting out? Do we know that yet?
We do, yes. So there's going to be a pop-up notification that says something to the effect of allow app name. So allow Facebook to track your activity across other companies' apps and websites. And Venmo has actually already complied with this. And so if you've logged into Venmo recently, I believe it's only if you've updated to at least the most recent version of iOS 14, you're going to get this prompt. And so these changes are really happening like right now. These things are starting to be enforced, and different apps are complying on different timelines just as they get their stuff together and push their new releases into the App Store.
Okay, interesting. Now you're talking in your position. You're the director of sales and marketing at Search Influence. I imagine you're talking to customers, potential customers, and existing customers all the time about this update. Is there any sense that people should maybe divest or take some money away from Facebook in favor of some other marketing activities that Search Influence does? Are you recommending at all that people divest until we know more, or what would you recommend?
No, not at this time. I mean, we still very, very, very much believe in the power of Facebook advertising, and the changes that they're making so far aren't going to limit your ability to reach your end user. The Apple changes and the way that people react to this prompt, that's more so going to impact that personalization side. Whereas the changes that Facebook is pushing are really have just more to do with the way that you're running your campaign, as well as the reporting that you can get from your campaign. So one of the big changes is that reporting is going to be delayed. So the data can take up to 3 days to come in. And so this can really impact you if you're running, say, a short-term campaign. If you have a week-long promotion and you were really looking for your campaigns to optimize quickly in that week, that is ultimately going to be more challenging for you. And then the other big change is that they're going from a 28-day conversion window down to a 7-day conversion window. And they do have a comparison tool available where you can look today. And the best practice or the recommendation is to go look right now before the 28-day window goes away. And you can kind of like toggle, okay, I want to see my conversions if I was looking at a 7-day window. I want to see my conversions if I'm looking at a 28-day window, and see how much of that delta is there and how much your reporting is going to be impacted based on that. So some people might unknowingly think, oh my gosh, my conversions have gone so far down, but that's just because the default attribution window is now so much shorter. I mean, it's going down to 25% of what it has been. And so we're used to getting, a full, essentially a full month for somebody to convert and be able to attribute that sale or that conversion back to our ads. And now that conversion has to happen within a week in order for our campaigns to get credit for it.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think the last thing to kind of have in context when I think about this is just the broader ads landscape. We know now that Google is getting rid of third-party cookies. This is going away, and now we're having to learn new things about cohorts and all this stuff. And so this is just another part of that whole landscape. I guess, before we get too far, maybe it'd be worthwhile, why are these big platforms? Why is Apple? Why are Facebook? Why is Google? Why are they making these kinds of changes? Where's the pressure coming from?
hmm It's all about privacy, and I think there are missteps that some larger companies have taken in the past that have made consumers really apprehensive. And we even had, gosh, this was probably 2 years ago, but when the whole Cambridge Analytica scandal was really coming out, we had somebody who Facebook advertising would have been really, really fantastic for say, I'm not advertising on Facebook. I'm not getting involved in that mess. I don't think it's the right thing for my customers. And I don't want to use this available data in this way in order to grow my business, which, in 11 years, that's the only time I've had somebody really take
Right.
that perspective. Usually people
Yeah, I think.
are, willing to leverage it.
Yeah, I think about this from a consumer's point of view, knowing what I know, and it's kind of like, well, they're going to serve me ads whether I like it or not. I might as well get ads for stuff I might like. But um, the last thing, there's this great blog post on the Search Influence site that we will link to in the show notes, and it takes you through 4 steps you can do to prepare for this. I don't know if you're ready, if I'm putting you on the spot too much at a but really at a big picture level, what are you guys at Search Influence recommending people do to prepare for this?
hmm Yeah, so we're spending a lot of time on that right now, particularly with some of our larger, more complex clients like higher education institutions. So we work with, at a major university, we're working with a couple of individual schools within that university. And so, we've got an ad account and a pixel for one school, an ad account and a pixel for another school. And what Facebook is forcing you to do is to have only 8 conversion events
Right.
for one domain. And so now you
Yeah,
can have
I learned about this from you guys.
multiple. Yeah, thank you. I'm glad you found that post helpful.
Yeah. Yeah.
So at the domain level, you have to make these decisions. And so at a university level where you have, maybe 7, 8, 12, 15 different agencies or people
Right.
running different Facebook campaigns, you have to bring all of those multiple stakeholders together and really collaborate on what are our 8 aggregated events going to be. And then you have to prioritize them. The prioritization is kind of crazy, but if you do it in the way that we're recommending, which is to think about your customer's journey and what is the ultimate action you want them to take in making that priority one. And it's not like you're prioritizing one school's conversion over another school's conversion.
Right.
You're going to be better set up, and you're going to be helping Facebook essentially understand what you want your campaigns to be optimized for. And so that is one very important thing to state, is that these changes are impacting businesses and organizations that are running ads that are using Facebook conversion events to auto optimize their campaigns. If you're not, then this isn't going to impact you as much, but you should be if you're not.
I get it. Well, this is good stuff. I mean, I think we'll post to the entire article. It's very well done as usual. And then I think the last thing I wanted to ask you is about another blog on your website about medical industry trends. So this was interesting. You kind of, I'll let you describe how you came up with the data. But one of the things that I found really, really interesting when I think about planning for 2021. So every year that I've ever been in SEO, we've done something similar to this. Let's compare organic traffic year over year. How did we do in 2021 relative to 2020 or before? Like, it doesn't seem like that's going to work next year, because 2020 was such an oddball year, especially if you're comparing March and April traffic. Tell us a little bit about this study that you did, how you arrived at the data, and what we might be able to learn so that we can, have better strategy and have better discussions with our clients.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've actually found myself doing a lot more comparison of a lot different date ranges in analytics when I'm trying to figure out what kind of success are we actually having today. And so I think, not only using your own data, but finding other industry benchmark data is really critical. And so what we kind of came to in the fall was I was having a conversation with a contact of ours that works for a hospital purchasing group. And we were talking about just kind of the ebbs and flow of revenue and which months were more positive than others. And I thought, gosh, it would be interesting to compare this to Google search trends data to see do the search trends really bear out, and do they really map with the revenue that we're hearing that hospitals are seeing or not seeing. And it turns out it did. It really, we saw this initial dip last April, and then depending on the subspecialty, you saw that return. And by October-ish, most, if not all, of the specialties that we looked at, the search volume had returned to either pre-COVID 2020 level, or it actually even surpassed it in some cases for some subspecialties. So you got that, the pent-up demand for some people when that patient confidence really started to return in the fall, and they were feeling good about, getting back to a practice, going back to the hospital, and having something that maybe has been ailing them for a while, really, getting that taken care of finally. To your other question about how can we leverage that data to really to support our clients when we're looking at their data, is comparing it to those Google trends and looking at the search trends in that industry. And so we actually were able to see some correlation between one of our plastic surgeon clients, their revenue, and the Google search trends data. So back in July, when the plastic surgery search trends were really starting to peak post-COVID again, we actually saw the revenue peak in that year map with that, which was just really cool. And actually, as an SEO, it gave me more confidence in that Google search trend data and in how useful it could be for us.
Really interesting. And that's a great use case too, is exactly what I was talking about is, okay, so we want to be held accountable. That's why we want all these things. To have the search trends data allows us to be, let's say, have realistic expectations for how we could be held accountable. Well, perfect. Well, Paula, I want to finish with everyone's favorite part of the show. This is where Greg Gifford gives me a question, but he gives me no context to the question. So you and I it's kind of a high wire act for both of us. We don't exactly know what's going on. I have, this is a first. This has never happened on Suds Search before, but this time we have a visual aid that I'm going to try and show you on my phone. We'll see how this goes. And then I have a description. So here's the no context Greg question is talk with your hands. And then this is if you can see my phone, this is the visual aid that he has provided. And I know no more than what I've given you. So from there, take it away.
All right. So I guess I should speak to that moment. I had a feeling that this was going to come up. So our dear industry friend, Matt Siltala, who has been a champion of mine really from my first speaking engagement. Yeah. Matt was right in the front row. My very first digital marketing speaking engagement, actually at State of Search in Dallas, which was the first time I met Greg. But so that picture was particularly from Engage in Portland. And as a New Orleanian, or as we like to call ourselves, Yats, I talk with my hands a lot normally. I'm doing a good job keeping them down today, but I normally am talking with my hands a lot. And so as I was talking about, whatever I was talking about at the time, local search related, my hands were up in the air, and Matt was taking pictures and caught a lovely shot of me. And then he used that to he memed me, I guess you could say, to promote his social media version 2 that was coming out that day.
Well, awesome. It's encouraged here. Anybody can talk with their hands on Suds Search anytime. So very good. How do people get in touch with you? How do people reach your agency? What's your favorite social media? All that kind of details.
Yep. So we do have a blog that we keep regularly updated on Search Influence. I and one of my coworkers are the primary editors of that blog. So keep an eye out for, additional content similar to the iOS 14 blog and the medical search trends blog that you referenced. We do plan to keep the iOS 14 blog updated. And so I'll leave it at that, even though I was about to add an extra piece of information in there. And then I and Search Influence post on, of course, Search Influence is on everything, Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, all that good stuff. But my most prolific, I would say, professional profile is LinkedIn. And if you want to follow me personally, Instagram, you can see pictures of my 2-year-old daughter running around town.
All right. Well, great. Well, I think this is a show about drinking beer or your favorite kind of alcohol. I want to just say, Paul, you have excellent taste in bourbon.
Well, thank you.
Did we get a picture of your bottle? Like that's a bottle of Bland's. I always think that bottle is beautiful. And then the bourbon in it is fantastic. So thank you. Thank you for coming on. And I think for now I'm going to sign off. I'll give you a virtual cheers. And Paula, thanks again. I hope to see you out on the road at some point.
Cheers. Same. I can't wait to get back out there.
All right, cool. And we'll be back next week with another episode of Suds Search. Thanks.
Thanks, Mark.